Nazis, they want to weaponize it.
Naturally.
So people ask me, well, what's torsion physics? Torsion is simply a mathematical construct that emerges in some of these early unified field theories. That if you take a soda can and empty the soda out of it and wring it like a dish rag in your hands, all right?
Mm-hmm.
That can represent space-time. Pardon me?
So twisting the top and the bottom of the can in opposite directions, then.
Twisting the top and the bottom of the can in opposite directions, exactly.
Okay.
That's what torsion does to the fabric of space-time. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason I think that this is what the Nazis are investigating with the bell is on the inside of this device, and I get into lengthy explanations of what is reported about the device, and then sort of on the basis of what's reported, try to back engineer it in my books. In other words, back engineer the possible construction and back engineer the physics behind it. It is known for a fact that inside this device they had two counter-rotating cylinders rotating in opposite directions. In my opinion, these, while we are not told their arrangement, in other words, we're not told if they were one inside the other or if they were one on top of the other. In my opinion, they were probably one on top of the other, because this would precisely give you a torsion effect, all right?
I see. So
in other words, they are examining all avenues that they can to get to a physics that will allow them to have control over anti-gravity, the nature of the physical medium itself, and therefore to give them also the ultimate doomsday weapon.
Oh my. Oh my.
Ah my. and here's the bad news, Antonin.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this project goes completely missing at the end of World War II, along with the general in charge of it. Okay. And you know, this Nazi general is kind of like Martin Bormann. You know the story about Martin Bormann. Martin Bormann dies over here in a tank, or oh wait a minute, maybe it was over here at the train station. And
yes.
Well, yeah, this SS general that was in charge of the bell, he managed to do what even Bormann didn't do. He dies no less than 4 times under different circumstances on 2 different days. Okay.
He sounds like he made a Democratic voter in Chicago.
Yes. Well, yeah, you're getting the picture here. You're getting the picture.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Which general is this?
This is SS General Hans Kammler, Obergruppenführer Hans Kammler, which would be the equivalent of a 4-star general. He, in my opinion, goes completely missing at the end of the war. Now, this is the real mystery here, Antonin, as to where the bell ends up. The man who uncovered the bell story originally was not me. It's a Polish researcher, a colleague of mine by the name of Igor Witkowski, all right, who published all of this story in Polish beginning in the early 1990s, right after German reunification. It was subsequently published in English. It was popularized, of course, by by the British journalist Nick Cook, who works for Jane's Defense Weekly, all right? And Nick Cook, of course, published his book, The Hunt for Zero Point. And both of these men concluded that the bell most likely, along with its scientists, came to this country, all right? Now, I take a very, very different line based on some things that were going on in Argentina, that most likely the project itself went to Argentina and continued to be investigated covertly by the Nazis themselves in Latin America. And I go into a lengthy project that was actually being sponsored by President Juan Perón's government in Argentina, and then it was shut down under circumstances that can only be called dubious. And at that point, the Nazi scientist that was in charge of Perón's project, he's placed under house arrest, and the project, so we're told, completely is shut down, but in my opinion, it's moved elsewhere. So the Bell Project, in my opinion, remained in Nazi hands. Some of the scientists went to Latin America. Some of them ended up in this country working for NASA. And that's a story that I get into in the books and in a big way in Roswell and the Reich. So, this is a huge story. There's no getting around it, and that's why I've written so many books about it, because you can't tell the story in one book.
There is a lot of real estate to cover. There's no question.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I wonder if we could maybe take this approach for the next just a couple of minutes. By way of somewhat recapping or summarizing the ground that we've already covered, if I could ask you just a few questions, because I'm really so pleased with the bbsradio.com listening audience, a very conscious, awakened, aware group of people, and I know that they oftentimes engage with these interviews in a true method or approach of a student, and they're taking notes and they're going to pursue threads of research.
Okay.
Could you tell us once again the German word or the term that was ascribed to this Bell research? I think you said it was war decisive. How is that in German again?
The German word is Kriegsentscheidend. ENTSCHEIDEND. Kriegsentscheidend.
Wonderful, thank you. And I believe you said that this was the only program that was regarded or held at that level of urgency or importance. Is that right?
That's correct.
Even superseding their research into the atomic bomb.
Yes, that's correct. And incidentally, I want to set some context here.
Sure.
The first book in my Nazi series, Reich of the Black Sun, is an overview of my argument that the Nazis may have actually been successful in achieving the atom bomb. Now, I know that's a whopper that is contrary to all of the standard histories, but the really interesting thing here, Antonin, is that after German reunification, when all of the installations in the former eastern zone of Germany, some of which even the Soviets did not go into because they had simply been booby-trapped and blown up by the SS. Well, with the German reunification, the whole story of the atomic bomb is quite literally being rewritten as we speak, largely by German and Polish and Czech researchers who've been able to piece together a truly astonishing story. But at the minimum, we are looking at a large and very successful German uranium isotope enrichment project on the scale, if not exceeding the scale of the Manhattan Project. So at the minimum, they were extraordinarily close to the atom bomb, if not successful.
And I believe in your research you point to at least one example of potentially or possibly when and where may have been tested.
I do. In Reich of the Black Sun, just to sum it up in a nutshell, in my opinion, they may have tested a small fission bomb on or near the island of Rügen in the Black Sea sometime between October 10th and October 12th of 1944. And the reason I say that, or the reason I maintain that, is there is a document that I refer to that was declassified only in 1992, just in the waning days of the first Bush administration before President Clinton's administration took office. The document is an affidavit of a German test pilot who records seeing or witnessing this test. And you have to read his description of what it is he's witnessing, because what he is describing in detail, and in detail that was not at that time known very well, is the detonation of a nuclear bomb. There's no other way to describe this other than as the detonation of a nuclear bomb.
Some of the telltale characteristics.
I go into many other contextual arguments that seem to corroborate that something happened during that time frame.
Mm-hmm. And I think perhaps this is another connecting point because quite a few folks in our audience are aware of, for example, Operation Paperclip, wherein some of those key scientists were brought here to the U.S. and went on to hold essential positions and have gained worldwide recognition and prominence for their work. Probably the most prominent would be Wernher von Braun and our space program, of course. But there were a number of others, and probably quite a few that we never really even heard the name openly or publicly. But the work they did, that doesn't diminish the importance or the significance of the research that they had been involved in.
No, it doesn't. I get into that aspect of the story in Roswell and the Reich because it is a crucial and in my opinion woefully neglected aspect of that whole episode by the ufology community. But if in essence, what you had with the Paperclip scientists, particularly in the space program, is quite literally, in my opinion, a penetration by a Nazi cell into key and crucial areas of the post-war U.S. military-industrial complex. And it was so successful, and I'm not the one who first pointed this out. This has been pointed out by other researchers, mainstream researchers, who even having pointed it out, I don't think really understand the significance of what they've just said. But these Nazis in the space program effectively reduplicated the very command structure, the very chain of command that they had working for Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany at Peenemünde. You find the same people in the same position doing the same jobs. And this isn't just merely after the war. This is all the way up through the Apollo program. So in other words, you have not only that, Antonin, but you have a dirty, dirty deal that was made between Allen Dulles and the German general in charge of German military intelligence on the Eastern Front at the end of the war that basically turned over this large Nazi military intelligence network to the ostensible control of the post-war American intelligence community, which later becomes the CIA. But its day-to-day operational control remains in German hands under the same German general that commanded it during the war.
Quite fascinating, no?
Well, what's happening is, effectively, you've just made the CIA, you've just compromised its civilian charter as soon as the ink is dry on the law that brings it into existence. And the other thing you've done is you've effectively made the operational Soviet desk of the CIA a front for nothing but Nazi spies.
Yes. And
so in other words, for those people who've always been maintaining that there's a rogue element within American intelligence, well, I would offer the opinion that this is the historical basis of it.
Quite right. And in my mind's eye, I can hear some of our listeners in their cognitive dissonance right now saying, that's just not possible. That's enough.
Of course.
I've had enough. That's not possible. And yet, I would ask you to open a fresh browser on your computer and do a Google search for the Gehlen organization. Gehlen, I believe, is the spelling.
That's correct.
The Gehlen organization, and you'll rapidly come across some information that'll help ease your cognitive dissonance and be prepared for the connecting elements of this thread. Because, in my view, the real estate that we've already had a chance to cover here in the conversation, and in particular to me, I believe it's much stronger than just a theory. It's not speculation on your part that the Germans had actually attained a very advanced position in their understanding with their atomic weapons program and research. As a matter of fact, that might quite possibly have been one of the important bargaining chips, I believe, for the folks that made the deal with the devil, so to speak, at the end of the war. I hope I'm not throwing too much out there on the plate, but in fact,
that's more or less the line I take in my books, particularly in the Nazi International. I speculate on a scenario that this atomic bomb technology and the secrets that went with it were indeed